I just had a few questions about the news today about Trump's tariff policy. I know that's like the big talk. So I guess my first question for you was, the Supreme Court struck down a majority of Trump's tariff policies, ruling that he acted illegally without going through Congress. And I just wanted to pick your brain and get your perspective on this ruling.
Well, obviously, we're just working to understand the decision right now, but one thing's clear, we have to respect the rule of law. That said, I think Congress, that what the court did today underscores the importance of Congress's work, and we can't lose momentum. President Trump has driven an America First agenda to ensure that we have fair trading relationships. And for too long, our country's been taken advantage of, even sometimes by some of our allies. And so I don't want to lose any of the progress that we've made. And then I want to work in a bipartisan way to make sure we have trading policies that make sense for America and protect American manufacturing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess there's been a lot of conversation about how tariffs are impacting, your everyday farmers. And I know here in Nebraska, it's been, kind of a contentious topic for our beef farmers and ranchers. Do you think this ruling will help them, hurt them? What are your thoughts on the tariff policy's impact on Nebraskans?
We need China to make good on its promise that they were going to buy American soybeans. And it's no surprise that China oftentimes doesn't follow through on its own commitments. And so you can do whatever you want with tariffs, but when you're working with a country that wants to be the world's sole superpower, they're not interested in American success. So I do think, like with the Great Britain and United Kingdom, countries like Vietnam, Japan, we've seen an openness to buy Nebraska beef. Our beef producers, relatively speaking, are doing pretty well right now. It's the row crop farmers that we're concerned about, and we can address that with common sense solutions like year-round E15 at the pump. We can address that with working to get China to make good on its promise. Ultimately, though, this tariff conversation is going to continue into the 120th Congress about what the right number should be, and I'm glad that Congress, the Supreme Court underscored the importance of Congress to be part of it.
Yeah, and then with our tariffs policy being a little back and forth, it's not very clear, where this is going to go next. What kind of support would you like to see at the federal level for our farmers, especially those crop farmers that are being hit a little harder? How can we continue to help them as we navigate international trade policy?
The more markets we can get into, the better. Getting into South America, Central America, dominance in Asia, working with our European allies. Certainly, we've got the negotiation of the USMCA coming up here later this year. The other day I voted the way I did on tariffs because I didn't want to undermine the president's leverage with countries like Canada. We have to renegotiate the USMCA, which is a very important trade agreement in North America. And I wanted the president to have as much leverage as possible. We're going to be back at the drawing board on Monday to make sure we have policies that make sense. And I think this will also give us an opportunity to talk with the administration about, what is our goal in Europe? Where are we going in Asia? How shall we do this together?
Yeah, and is there a lot of conversation and collaboration between the people in Congress and Trump when it comes to these kind of things? Does he take a lot of input from?
Well, I can tell you right here in Nebraska, the chairman of the subcommittee on trade under the Ways and Means Committee is Adrian Smith. Mm-hmm. And so by virtue of the fact that I'm at the Nebraska breakfast every week, he updates all of us on kind of what the conversation with the White House is on trade. And there's been a really good back and forth that people don't read in the news or see on TV. But Congressman Smith has been at the table dialogue with the White House throughout this entire process.
Yeah, absolutely. And just today, with that ruling, Trump had said he planned to impose a 10% global tariff while he's exploring other trade policy avenues. Do you support that? And I guess outside of tariffs, what are some other ways we can move forward?
Well, I have to look and see what the president proposed. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet, but I do think that the president's focused on onshoring manufacturing. One thing we learned during COVID is that we are reliant on countries outside of our control to provide important equipment, medicine, technology that's important to our food chain, important to our way of life. And so we can't forget the lesson we learned during COVID, and that is onshoring a lot of this will make us stronger as a country. And we want to be a country that makes things. We want to be a country where we are engaged in manufacturing. If people knew how China manipulated its own people, sometimes putting them in slavery-like conditions to make the products and goods that are consumed around the world, we don't do that way. And we shouldn't be buying projects that are made that way. So I'm hopeful that we don't lose any of the momentum that the president has built, bringing manufacturing back to the United States.
Yeah, absolutely. Coming from Wisconsin, I had done a lot of reporting on our soybean industry,
Yeah.
and even in central Wisconsin, we're the ginseng capital of the world. And a lot of the concerns were about maybe not even just like, are we going to be able to sell our product overseas, but that the manufacturing costs and the cost to bring these parts into the U.S. to make those products. So just another roadblock for
Right.
farmers to jump through.
Obviously, we are focused on the ag economy, and like I said, E15 year-round would help. China making good would help. I also think about companies like Kawasaki. I've been very active promoting their cause. Here we have 2,000 hardworking folks from the Lincoln area that are exporting around the world. And so when I debate or advocate on behalf of Lincoln, I think really closely about some of these companies that are really international in scope, and how can our policies enable them to be even more successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Just shifting gears to DHS and where we're at with that deal. I was wondering if we have any updates. Are we going to get a vote soon?
I would certainly vote tomorrow if there was a continuing resolution, but I did vote in the House to fully support DHS, and it passed. It was sent over to the Senate. Listen, this is a fight between the White House and Senate Democrats. And sadly, once again, we're watching as Senate Democrats would rather shut the government down and put people into uncomfortable situations to make a point, when in fact we've already funded ICE enforcement through 2029. So all they're doing is they're hurting FEMA, they're hurting the Coast Guard, the Secret Service, and ultimately, and most importantly, I think for our nation's transportation system, TSA agents. And I predict that if they aren't willing to come to the table, we're going to have a situation where our air traffic system's not going to work, because the TSA agents will stop coming to work when they don't get a paycheck. And who can blame them? They've got to be sick and tired of being used as pawns in these games over and over and over again by a bunch of Senate Democrats that aren't really connected to the needs and wants of the country.
Yeah. I guess as far as long as it will take, do you think there's a potential to get that continuing resolution?
Yeah, I do. Chuck Schumer did the right thing the first time we had this issue, and then because of the fury of some of the far left, we had a 40-day shutdown. But ultimately, he knows that the government being partially shut down is not in the best interest of his party or ultimately his country. And so I hope that he does do the right thing. At a minimum, let's pass a continuing resolution to give them more time to work through the issue.
Absolutely. And then I guess I just wanted to pick your brain on some of the Democrats' demands. I know they wanted body cameras and identification, more standard uniforms. Are there anything that you agree with? Are there demands that you see as unreasonable?
I went to bat for the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office to get body cams, and I understand the DHS is in the process of deploying body cams. I think that's a reasonable step. I don't think Congress should prescribe to a federal agency what the uniform should be for their enforcement efforts. People have to remember there are these organized criminal organizations called cartels that have made billions of dollars over running people across the border, pushing drugs, fentanyl, guns, human trafficking. When you are an ICE agent and you appear in the media, you put your family and yourself at risk. And that's just a sad fact of what's going on. And so the idea that Congress should prescribe what the uniform looks like for somebody enforcing our federal laws, I think that might be a step too far. I think we have to be reasonable about it, but a lot of these ICE agents are, they are targeted by very well-funded criminal organizations that will do harm to them.
Yeah, and I guess one more question about DHS. Do you think the way things are going, do you think Trump will have to compromise more, or do you think or do you think it'll be the U.S. senators that are negotiating? Like, who's going to have to give to get this spending plan through?
Well, everybody knows that Donald Trump likes the art of the deal, and so I would be making a mistake if I predicted whether or not he would engage in what kind of compromise. But ultimately, every single time one of these issues presents themselves, it ends in a compromise, and that's the way our system works. So ultimately, there's going to be some finality towards funding DHS, and I just hope it's sooner rather than later. I don't like the idea of using TS agents as pawns in a game that makes no sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, shifting gears to your campaign, how are we feeling heading into this election?
I feel good. As I said earlier today, one of my mentors, former Governor Dave Heineman, told me, if you do good at your job, that's what you have to worry about. People will send you back. And, this is a difficult political environment for both Republicans and Democrats. Our country oftentimes divided on some of the most important issues. But, I'm active in our communities. I'm visible. I am listening. I am working to do my best to represent not just Republicans, but all the Democrats and all the independents that live in this district. I hold town halls. I make myself available, and I work to celebrate the wins, no matter what party somebody's in. I mean, we're in this together as Nebraskans, and this week has been incredibly uplifting for me. I've had great events in Papillion, Columbus, Norfolk, and then today in Lincoln. And when you're busy doing your job as a member of Congress, you're usually at official events, but to see all of these longtime friends come out and be supportive, I've been doing this since 2004, and it's fun to see these folks that I have spent decades with, working in the trenches with, come out and support my race. And so my spirits are really high.
Yeah, and what are some of your big priorities that you hope to carry into a second term?
Well, one of the things I'm most proud of is, I've been in Congress almost 4 years, and I'm the chairman of a subcommittee, which is something that doesn't happen very often, of an A committee. And I am the chairman of the Main Street Caucus, which is 88 members of Congress in the Republican side. We meet every week. I'm in the Speaker's office twice a week. I'm at the leadership table with the top leaders in the House of Representatives, and I want to build upon that. Like every day that I go to Congress, I try and do even better on behalf of the people in the 1st District. And I think putting myself in a leadership spot, very excited about my housing bill, which is on its path to pass, which is landmark legislation, first housing bill since 2015, biggest remodel of a HUD program since 1993. All of that kind of comes together for me. And, I see, now that I've been there 4 years, I see a path towards doing even bigger things for Nebraska. I need to earn and continue to earn the respect of those that decide who gets to be our representative and deliver for the state of Nebraska.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it definitely helps when you have a couple years under your belt.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
I went to the Nebraska legislature when I was 28, and there's a learning curve there. I was lucky. After 2 years, I got to be the speaker, which was an amazing honor. And I think that experience in a legislative body has helped shape my success in Congress, because you have to understand how a legislative body works. You don't get to walk in the room and say, okay, everybody, sit down, we're going to do A, B, and C. You have to go around and say, hey, I'd like you to consider this idea, or how could we do this, or okay, what's your idea? How do we take your idea and use some of my ideas and push us forward? And that's the magic of being a legislator. I actually think it's much harder to be a legislator than it is a member of the executive branch, because they got to wake up and just make a decision. I got to wake up and say, okay, how am I going to get 270 people to agree with this idea, which is far more complex and plural than one person.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't envy you guys' job. I think that every day when I'm writing about these really complex bills, and just the amount of work it goes into to get that final product out the door.
And even more so in Congress. I mean, when you have, I'm used to a unicameral. You have the House and the Senate and the President. A lot of cooks in the kitchen. That's what makes it so gratifying when it works.
Absolutely. And you talked a little bit about one of your challengers and his experience in Washington. I guess, what are your thoughts again on him?
I just think if you want to represent us, you have to be one of us. You have to live here. You have to have your kids go to school here. You got to own a house here. You've got to pay taxes here. If you look at my last 20 years of my life, I've worked on issues in the Republican River Basin. I've worked on, I was here for the 2019 floods. I saw as we rebuilt literally hundreds of bridges. I've experienced the highs and lows of Husker athletics, and I helped develop the university campus, or the University Innovation Campus. And today in Congress, I'm helping it grow by adding a $130 million ag research facility. I built a business here. I made a payroll every 2 weeks since I was 24 years old in Nebraska. I've had to make the same decisions a lot of us have on health insurance and how do you pay for it and how do you make sure you offer it to your employees. And so I just feel like, no disrespect to anybody else, but I've been on the job, living here, working here, investing here, and thriving here, and raised my kids here. And I've got one son still in a high school here. So there's a lot of that comes with a lot of benefits. Like I know the lay of the land, I know the people, I know the mayors, I know the city council people, I know the legislature, I've experienced the Lincoln business community. I know how important the arts are to folks in our nation, in our state's capital city. So I just think that all is a benefit when you're working on behalf of the people.